is our first formula. So what you see is how to solve for future value based on today's cash flow amount, and it is today's cash times 1 plus interest rate to the power of a number of a period. Okay, that's how we compound the cash flow based on the interest and the number of a period for investment. Okay. You also have an Excel formula for that. I do not put it in practice in this video. I'm going to separate all the Excel practices for the chapter in your Excel project number 2. Alright, so for now we just focus on the mathematical part of it. If you take a look at this formula, just to take a look, and then we do this practice. Alright, so suppose that you are investing $500 in a saving account that earn 3%, and what will the account be worth in 5 years? So when you use that formula, the $500 is your cash today, 3% is the interest rate here, and the T is 5. Okay, so that's how much you are going to have. You have 500 start in year 1. You accumulated let's see, you accumulate a 3% interest, and then you get a 515. And in the second year, you start with 515, you accumulate another 3% interest, and you get a 530. Okay, this 530 is also 500 times 1 plus interest compounded for 2 years. And you also get the value for 3rd year, 4th year, 5th year if you compound it for 3, 4, 5 years. Okay, that's easy calculation. I think you have the skill to do it on your calculator. The mathematical calculation is not that hard. Alright, so what I really want to teach you in this class is how to use a financial calculator to solve it. Alright, so that's your input. There are basically 5 major factors in your financial calculator. Okay, you have an N stands for number of periods. You have I stands for interest rate. Be careful, you need to put a 3, number 3 for 3%. And I know some of you are thinking that 3% is 0.03 mathematically speaking, but in your financial calculator you should put 3 for 3%. Do not put a 0.03. Alright, and here you put a present value, which is your money today. Be careful, your calculator actually recognizes the direction of cash flows. If you are depositing money, if money is coming out of your pocket instead of coming in your pocket, okay, when it's coming out, it should be negative. Alright, it should be a negative cash flow. And payment, right here, the 4th factor, is the fixed amount of income or payment that happens every period, but you don't have that payment being concerned here. Okay, you have only one cash flow today and then one cash flow in the future 5 years later. Okay, you don't have a cash flow that happens every year for the next 5 years. Okay, and then you solve for the future value. Alright, so if I move back to your calculator, alright, so this is a TI-84. Let me just put a full screen to that. Alright, so so these are your keys, and this is your screen, and here are the keys. So let me first do the mathematical calculation. So I'm going to use the 500 multiplied by, okay, parenthesis 1 plus 0.03, okay, close parenthesis, raised to the power of a 5. Alright, hit enter. You get a 579. Alright, that's your answer. Okay, and if you want to do the financial function, this is what you should do. You need to first hit apps. Okay, you need to hit this button, apps, application. Alright, and then you will see finance being on the top of the list. So you either hit enter or you hit number 1. Okay, either of them would do. Okay, and then you are solving time value of money solver. Okay, you choose this option, hit enter. Alright, and now you get the page to edit all the numbers. So our case is a 5-year investment, so you put a 5, and then for the interest you scroll down, and then 3% is your interest. And for the present value, you know it's going to be negative 500. As I said, your calculator recognizes the direction of cash flows, so you should put a negative 500. And be careful, you have a subtraction sign here, a minus sign here, and also you have a negative sign here. Make sure you put this negative sign instead of minus sign. Okay? If you put a subtraction, that's going to be an arrow. Okay? Negative 500. You scroll down, payment is 0, and then you solve for future value. Make sure your future value is highlighted when you solve it. Okay? So what you need to do there is to solve. And basically, how do you select solve? It's alpha, enter. You probably read this little green word, solve. Okay? How can you get that green function? You're going to hit alpha, enter. Okay? And then your answer just to come out. It is $579. Okay, as what we see right here. Okay. All right. So that's how we solve for time value of money. When we know present value, we solve for future value. All right. So our next topic is how to solve for the present value when you have a future value. So this time you know how much money you're going to have several time from today, several years from today, and you're going to discount that future value, okay, at the interest rate for the number of periods. All right. So if you want to do in Excel, of course, we're going to do it in a separate practice, which is your Excel project 2. Okay. And if you want to work on it, you can practice this. You need to have $40,000 in 6 years to use as a down payment on a house. Okay, the money will earn about 8% annually. How much do you need to invest today? So basically, your story is to have a $40,000 6 years later, and the interest is 8%. How much do you need to save today? So you're gonna put $40,000 on the top of a fraction line, and then you discount it with 8% rate for 6 years. Okay, 6 period, and then you got the answer. And if you want to do it in your calculator, so you put N as 6 years, I as 8, and you solve for present value with 0 payment. Okay, you can see that there's no annual payment being made or received, and your future value is $40,000. And the sign here is negative today and a positive in the future. You deposit some money coming out of your pocket today, and then money coming in your pocket in the future. All right. So if I use my calculator to do the job, I can just move back. Let me clear all this. Okay. Clear the history of my operation. All right. Oops. Clear. All right. So I move back to N. I want my N to be 6. That's 6 years. And then my I is 8%. And then I try to solve for present value. Well, you can leave it as it was, or you just put a 0, and then that basically reminds you to come back to solve. And your payment is 0. You skip that. And you want to have a $40,000, okay, don't put a comma, all right, it's just to put a 4 and 4 zeros, all right, and then you move back to present value. You hit alpha, enter, which is to solve. So that's your number, negative $25,206.79. all right, that's pretty easy. You probably have recognized that you have another 3 factors, PY, CY, and payment. These are all the characteristics regarding to your payment. Since your payment is 0 right here, you don't have to worry about it for now. Okay, in the future we're going to address this issue. Okay, so the next subject is the time period. Oops. Okay, so how long is the wait? If you deposit $5,000 today in an account paying 10%, how long does it take to grow to $10,000? All right, so that's your Excel formula, and you're gonna again use your calculator, and this would be your input. I'm not gonna go through the calculator again, show you the screen of my calculator again. You just need to try out these numbers. You put a 10 as interest, negative 5,000 as present value, 0 as payment, and the future value as $10,000. Be very careful. Okay, here is a very very important message. You have to put one cash flow negative and another positive. Okay, if you're depositing today, money coming out of your pocket, that's a negative. When it's cash outflow, it's a negative. Oops, I'm sorry. When it's cash inflow, you're gonna receive the money, that's positive. Okay, negative, positive. And if you put a positive, then if you try to solve for n, you will get an error. Okay, you will get an error because the calculator will not recognize such balance of cash flows. Alright, so make sure you try that. The next one is to solve for interest rate. So assume the total cost of college education will be $50,000 when your child enters college in 12 years. You have $5,000 to invest today. What rate of interest must you earn on your investment to cover the cost of your child? So what you need to put is you have 12 years for investment, and you want to know what interest would be, so you leave that open. And then you put $5,000 today, okay, and a 0 payment made each year for the next 12 years, and you want to have your investment grow tenfold to 50,000. All right, and make sure you have a negative number here and a positive number here, otherwise your calculator would not function. Okay, and then you move back to I, you solve for the interest. All right, and that's going to be 21.15%. That's a quite big number, and I don't think that's quite possible for a regular individual to get from the financial market, unless you are super smart and stay on the top of the game of the investments. All right, and now let's move to payment. Okay, so I have been talking about 0 payment on, and now our payment finally is not 0. So if you read this question, you just borrowed, okay, a $200,000 mortgage loan that is going to be paid back in 20 years with a 5% interest. All right, and the payment is going to be made at the end of each year. What is your annual payment? And you can tell clearly this question is to ask yourself for payment with all the other 4 factors known. So you have a 20 years, and interest is 5%. And the next challenging question is what's your present value and what's your future value? So today, do you receive cash or do you pay cash? All right, the question is, you borrow from a bank, you actually receive cash today. You have liabilities, but you have cash inflows as well. So when you receive money, when money coming into your pocket, so you can use to pay for a house, that's a positive number, $200,000. And what about the future value? So you're gonna pay off the $200,000 with an annual mortgage payment, okay, with an annual payment, and there's no payment being made in addition to that 20-year payment, okay, 20 payments for 20 years, okay. So there's no money in addition to that 20 payments. So your future value should be 0. Okay, your future value should be 0. And then you solve for payment, and make sure that the payment is made at the end of each period. All right, and then that's your number. So I think it's necessary for me to get back to the calculator page, and let's just work on this all together. So let me clear this. Okay, so I move to N, that's a 20 years, and then I move to I, that is 5%, so put 5, do not put 0.05, and my present value is $200,000. I just get from a bank with $200,000, and the payment is something I need to solve. And I also have a zero future value. So in addition to the annual payment, I make a zero payment. Okay. In 20 years later, I make a zero payment in addition to the 20 payment. So my only payment here is the annual payment. Okay, so then I do alpha solve. Oh, by the way, make sure your payment here is selected as end, because sometimes the payment could be made at the beginning of each period. And for mortgage payment, it should be made at the end of each period. Alright, so you can select begin, or you can select end just by pushing the left arrow or right arrow. So make sure end is selected. Okay, so solve for payment, alpha, enter. Alright, so that's your number, negative $16,049 if you round it. So that's your number, and some of you may think that, what about, well, if I'm paying for a house, I pay that $200,000. So $200,000 is coming out of my pocket as the payment for my house. Should that be negative? I understand that. The thing is, we're talking about the relationship built between you and the financial institution or the bank you borrow money from. Okay, so we focus on the financing relationship instead of the house payment. So in the financing relationship, or financial relationship if you want to call it, you get $200,000 from a bank, and then you need to pay $16,000 each year in the future. Okay, so that's the financial relationship we're talking about. The house payment basically is a $200,000 being paid out, and you receive a house. Okay, that's not a financial relationship. That's basically a consumption. All right, but for financial relationship, it is $200,000 being received today and $16,000 being paid every year for the next 20 years. So that's how we define the direction of our cash flows. So that's how we put a positive or negative signs in front of the cash flows. All right.